This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
This chapter deals with communication and some of the theories lying behind it. Communication within an organisation and between organisations is, of course, needed for planning, coordination and control. You can even add to that list and say it's needed for appraisal, it's needed for motivation. You couldn't conceive really of an organisation existing for any length of time if communication wasn't really central to what it was doing. Now, the pattern of communication is or can be broken down as follows. First of all, you form the thought. So when I'm speaking to you, I am thinking, what needs to be said, what do I want to say. I encode it, and in this case, the encoding is producing speech. Of course, communication can be written, and encoding would then be writing. Communication can be graphical, it could be through a film, and again, the encoding would be the mechanism by which you capture the images. You transmit it. So writing can be done by ordinary post, writing can be transmitted by email, speech can be transmitted directly if you're talking to someone, or over the internet or over the phone, but that's basically the transmission stage. It is then received, we hope, by the intended recipient, reading, listening, watching are all ways in which the communication can be received. And then the person receiving the information has to decode it. They have to try to make sense of the words, try to make sense of the writing, understand the diagram, and only once it's decoded are they going to be able to take some action upon it. They may give feedback to the person who sent the information. They would send an email back or a letter back or reply to part of the conversation. Or, of course, it may spur them into action of some sort, that the message has been transmitted with the hope of getting you to do something. So you need to know these 4 or 5 elements of the communication chain. And, of course, things can go wrong at any point here. If I didn't form the thoughts properly, if I formed incorrect thoughts, if I began talking about stuff which wasn't on the syllabus, then the communication is pretty useless from the word go. I encode it, I decide what sort of language I'm going to put it in. So I have to think of the words that might be appropriate. And again, if I began using too much terminology, then, of course, the encoding stage can break down as well. Transmission can obviously go awry. The internet doesn't work, the mobile phone reception is bad, the post doesn't get through, there's a danger it doesn't work there. The recipient may not open their inbox, if you like. There may be a problem there. The recipient might not want to listen to what you're saying. There may be some sort of problem with, not wanting to hear. And finally, the recipient, of course, may decode it incorrectly, get the wrong end of the stick, and misunderstand what is happening. So at all of these points, there is really a danger that something is going to inhibit the communication, is going to stop it being successful. And more generally, these problems are known as barriers to communication, which we'll see in a moment. Just take note that communication can be in various sorts of directions. It could be vertical. So vertical is between a boss and a subordinate, or subordinate and a boss. Horizontal would be all at the same level within the organization, so all the people at a particular grade, let's say, in an organization communicating one with the other. It could be diagonal, where I am not talking to my boss, but I'm having to communicate to someone else who's more senior, present them with some information for example. And communication can be formal or informal. By and large, quite a bit of written communication tends to be formal. And written communication is what you need if you need to put a lot of detail into it, if you want to make sure everyone gets the same message. If there's a record of what you've said, then that is formal communication. And of course it will give the recipient of that information, gives them a piece of paper basically, or an email that they can refer back to. Informal communication, usually some sort of speech, talking is informal communication. It can of course be made more formal if it's a formal address of some sort. But as you know, there are problems with talking, too much communication or too much fact, if you like. People are liable not to remember it, they may get confused and so on. There might be no record of what you said. If you're seeing a series of employees coming in to tell them maybe what's happening in the company, then there is a real danger that this informal talk you're giving to each person changes very slightly over the course of the day. So you see a kind of feedback when you tell the first person about a piece of news, and then maybe what you do is you adapt what you're going to say later on, and the second person gets a slightly a different take on what you're trying to say. And finally, of course, within formal and informal, remember the use of diagrams, graphics, films. They can often be very powerful at getting ideas across and can be very memorable. Barriers to communication. Barriers to communication are going to inhibit the message getting through. Some of these we've mentioned already, like inappropriate language. It could be just speaking German to someone who doesn't speak German. Obviously that's not very sensible. But the use of too much terminology. When an accountant writes to a client and begins using, say, taxation terms and the like, it doesn't take very much before the communication doesn't work satisfactorily. Status. Maybe the boss thinks that the person beneath them has got nothing worthwhile to say, and the boss says, I'm just not going to be interested in any of that communication. It could be that the person at the bottom is intimidated, maybe by saying something to the boss, in case the boss doesn't want to hear it, or there's some sort of adverse effect there. Emotion. When we're talking about appraisals, I think I said that you have to be really, really careful about giving criticism to people. And appraisal interviews can very quickly get very emotional. And once the emotion is there, once somebody feels angry, once they feel they're being dealt with unfairly, then emotion gets in the way of actually both transmitting it if you are emotional and receiving it if the recipient is emotional. So much better, obviously, to try and keep things calm, to try to defuse situations by choice of language, choice of maybe where and how you impart the information. Wrong medium. We've talked about that. If I had to explain to people the new pension scheme is liable to be very complicated. Just doing it through speech is likely to be inadequate. You could obviously put all of the information into a written document, but then people might not be motivated to read it. And what might be best is to use a kind of two-pronged approach. Give them a bit of paper with all the detail and the record they can go back to later, but also use a kind of presentation, if you like, to outline what's in there and to motivate them to actually read it. Not wanting to transmit. Again, going back to appraisals, sometimes bosses are reluctant to give bad news to a subordinate. It may not even be telling them they're going to be sacked, but just telling them, you weren't very good on that, we need to see an improvement. Some people are reluctant to do that because they fear maybe it's going to give rise to resentment of some sort. And so what you do is you kind of try to send a message, but you don't really send it, you're surrounded with so much confusion or so many mild words that this information doesn't get through. Not wanting to receive. Some people are reluctant to hear that they're not perfect, and the criticism which they hear is just kind of blanked off, just put another bit of their brain, and they will come out of appraisal interviews thinking that they had nothing but praise. And then a great curse of the internet and email age, information overload. People in many organizations get hundreds of emails per day. Some of them are sent just to give almost an insurance to the sender, who could say, well, I told you in an email. But it means that the poor old recipient has to go through all of the emails and find which ones are relevant, which ones are important, and kind of delete the rest. And of course, it's very easy to overlook the important one. It's not really standing out amongst all of this dross which is in the inbox. Finally, Levitt looked at various patterns of communication that can be set up. You can have a Y shape, which is broadly like that. So we have got two people here communicating with one person down there, and so on. You can have a wheel, and a wheel is a bit like this. And you've got the kind of axle in the middle. So information can go directly, maybe from you to a colleague, or information can maybe go through your boss, something of that sort, either instead or as well. The circle is a bit like the wheel, but without the central part of it. That's the circle. And then there's a chain, which is basically that sort of shape, where you have to send information along like that. Now, what's the point of all of these patterns? And really the point is that the pathways of communication, the patterns of communication, can have a different effect on the speed of communication. So if you're on a chain, and basically we're saying, if I want to communicate to this person here, I first communicate to that one, and then that one, like that. That's where it's going to go. And so that's a very slow method of communication from here to here. And also as it goes through these various links in the chain, the information can become distorted. There's something of a similar sort of problem in a circle. If I want to communicate to this person here, and I'm here, then it has to go to this one, and then to that one. And again, there's an element of delay in going from one to the other. The wheel offers a more direct route. You can communicate directly with people, or to speed things up, you can kind of cut across the center of the wheel, and this is liable to give quite a fast method of communication. And the Y, kind of going through it's a kind of central clearinghouse here. It's becoming a little bit like a chain in some ways, but it's not limited to just two people in the Y there. So we can communicate from here to down here by going down this kind of Y-shaped, and that's probably going to give a reasonably fast method of communication. But just know what they are: the Y, the wheel, the circle, and the chain.